Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am a wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and your host. Today on the podcast we have Makenzie. We chat through her love story and planning a beautiful wedding at Mudbrick on Waiheke Island. I actually interviewed Makenzie quite a while ago, around the end of last year, and she was just a couple of weeks out from giving birth to her son, so lovely to chat to her. We talk about how they had always planned to get married in Tuscany in Italy, but then decided to do something a bit closer to home but still feel like a destination, and how Mudbrick was the perfect place for that. We talk about how they made the most of their celebrations and time spent with their guests on the island. We go into budget, all the good stuff, and she gives some great advice around wedding planning in general. So we'll get straight into it. I know you're going to love this one. Enjoy episode 29 with Makenzie. So hi, Makenzie. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. Nice to be part of the whole thing.
So excited to chat all about your wedding. So to start off with, if you could just tell me a bit about you and your partner, how you guys met and your life together.
Yeah, so my husband now, James, and I, we've been together for 10 years this year. So quite a long time. But yeah, we met at work. We were working a random little office job at the time and ended up just kind of hitting it off. He was from the UK, so out here backpacking at the time. But yeah, as soon as we kind of got together, we decided to travel. So we went overseas. We were in the UK for about a year, and then we ended up moving to Australia for 3.5 years. So kind of spent quite a lot of time away, and then ended up deciding to come home. So both of us have always worked in the events industry. That's something that we really love, kind of being part of all of the live events and all the fun stuff. But yeah, no, just been a busy kind of 10 years, I guess. It's flown so quick. We have a dog. He's 4. Theo, he's like the love of our life. But yeah, no, and now obviously we're about to have another baby in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, I don't know quite how the dog's going to adjust, but yeah, no, all exciting.
Yay, so cool. So can you tell us a bit about your proposal story and how that all went down?
Yeah, so yeah, I have to kind of hats off to my husband for the proposal. It's definitely something that I think he's quite proud of. He did a really good job of actually planning the whole thing, but essentially got told I was getting taken on a mystery date. So that would have been in 2020. So it was just a little gap in the lockdowns. And we were driving south, not really sure where we were going. And then I eventually clicked on that we were going to Waitomo, which is where the caves are. That was actually one of our first dates that we did 10 years ago. So I was like, oh, so cute, like thinking we're going to go and do this, like, same tour that we'd done when we first met, which he did. That's what he had planned. And then afterwards, I thought we were going home, and we were driving along this like backcountry road, and he slammed on his brakes, and we were outside the Waitomo glamping entrance, and he had organised for us to stay there as a surprise. But I genuinely hadn't clicked to anything at this point. So I was just like, oh, that's so nice. Like, what a nice thing to think to do. I mean, in hindsight, it was probably quite obvious, but it didn't quite click at the time. But yeah, it was really lovely. We were just like sitting around by the fireplace that evening, listening to music. And then, yeah, he asked me to stand up if I wanted to watch the sunset. And I was like so confused what exactly was going on. But yeah, then he proposed, which was really lovely. It was perfect. But yeah, it's quite funny now in hindsight. It was like all my friends are like, how did you not clue up to the fact that he was so obvious? But no, I genuinely just thought he was being really nice. So
Oh, love that. Got the surprise factor in, which doesn't always happen.
no.
So, had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about your wedding day? And did you have like a specific vision and style in mind of what you wanted? And yeah, how did you go about those first kind of steps of booking your venue and all of that?
Yeah, so in terms of like the wedding itself, I guess in my head I always thought we'd get married overseas, to be honest. We had spent our first anniversary in Italy, so I was always in my head thinking, oh, we'll go back to Tuscany and like that's where I want to get married. Um, but with James being from the UK, his family had never come out here before, so he really, really wanted a chance for everyone to come out and see New Zealand, and for our families to meet as well. They'd never met, um, so we kind of originally when we first got engaged, we said like we're not going to plan anything for a couple of weeks, just sit on our hands. But by I think it was about 9 a.m. the next morning after he had proposed, we were lying in bed and he was like, "Oh, let's just call Mudbrick," because we had gone there for a birthday lunch a couple of years prior, and he was like, "We'll just call and see how far off their wait list might be, blah blah blah." But that was kind of it, really. We just decided in the end, after me deciding we obviously weren't going to be going overseas, that yeah, Mudbrick was the one. And it was almost like we got to recreate that feeling of being in Tuscany, being at Mudbrick. So it was kind of like meeting in the middle, really. And Mudbrick's so beautiful. So it was a kind of perfect merge of both, really.
Oh, so nice. Such a special place. And yeah, even just going over to Waiheke Island, like, does sort of feel like you're off to a European spot or something.
Yeah, yeah, and we kind of thought Waiheke was magic because it was such a nice showcase of all the beautiful parts that New Zealand have to offer as well. Especially because we had about 45 international guests in the end. So it was just, yeah, we loved that it became a destination for everyone as well.
What were the most important elements of the day for you, your kind of top priorities when it came to like details, vendors, or yeah, what was most important?
For us, I think the most important thing that we always kept coming back to is that we wanted it to be like just so much fun for everybody. Uh, Obviously, like everyone has different priorities through their day, but for us, it always came back to trying to make sure that everyone had a great time. And one of the biggest elements of that for us was the entertainment. And so we really focused quite a lot on making sure that we had something that we thought would be really engaging. We'd been to a couple of weddings in the past, which I think most people have, where people aren't really dancing and it doesn't really flow right through. But we really prioritized having really great entertainment. So yeah, a good friend of ours is a professional musician, and he arranged for a DJ set and also a saxophonist to come in. Um, yeah, and it was like honestly, there's so much fun. It was the only wedding, not to you always say that about your own wedding, but it was the only wedding I've probably been to where as soon as the first dance was over, everyone like everybody there was dancing right until we all got kicked out. And that was exactly what we wanted. And, we just wanted it to be a really fun evening where everyone just had a great time.
Amazing. I love that. It's such an important part and something that people overlook sometimes. Like you can't necessarily create that vibe by just putting a playlist on, like getting somebody, getting people up on the dance floor and just, yeah, creating that, putting some thought into it is super important.
Yeah, for sure. That was the biggest thing for us, is just making sure that it was something that everyone was going to have a great time. We just wanted everyone to have fun.
So, can you tell me a bit about your wedding outfits, what you guys wore, and yeah, how was that whole process like finding your dress or getting it made? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I had quite a specific vision in my head of what I wanted from my dress. Um, I know that it's become so popular, especially in the last couple of years, to have kind of more simplified dresses. Where there's not as much going on, but in my head I always knew I wanted that bigger kind of dress. In my head I always thought, it's the one day that I can wear a big dress. That's what I want to do. So yeah, it was because we were engaged for quite a long time. I had quite a bit of time up my sleeve to look around, and I spent quite a lot of time trying on different gowns around New Zealand. I flew up and down the country, checked out a couple of different places, and there was just not really anything that had all the boxes ticked for me. So I started having a look around overseas. Now I ended up finding Blanche, who ended up designing and making my gown uh, through just like social media. I just was scouting all the time to see, the people tagging different designers to see what, who made their dresses. But yeah, so I ended up flying over to Sydney where Blanche is and trying on a whole bunch of gowns with my maid of honor. She was based over there, so she came and did that with me. And yeah, they ended up just making the most incredible dress for me. And it was exactly what I had envisioned in my head. So I was really, really stoked with the whole thing. Yeah, it was just, yeah, I was so pleased because I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't have found them. I think I would have had to have probably changed exactly what I wanted in my head, but I'm so glad that I got to still tick all the boxes that I loved, through them, and I didn't have to, go to the other side of the world or anything to find that.
So special, just getting exactly what you want that fits you perfectly. And yeah, sometimes we do have to look beyond New Zealand. There's a lot of amazing designers out there. So yeah, we'll have to share a few photos so people can see your dress as well.
Yeah, they did an amazing job. They, took a lot on board and did little tweaks and things. And yeah, it was just a really great experience to work with them as well.
And who was in your bridal party, and how did you find that process? Was it easy choosing them?
So for our bridal parties, my husband and I, we both come from quite big families. And especially because it was going to be the first time our families had ever met in the 10 years we've been together. And they were all flying out from the UK and Canada. We wanted to incorporate the family as much as possible. So for me, I had my maid of honor, Emily. She's one of my best friends. She was based in Sydney, but then I had my two sisters and then the eldest of James's sisters. And so that was really nice to be able to have her part of it as well. And then on his side, he had two best men. He couldn't choose between his two best friends. So that was actually really nice. They did their speeches together and everything. So that was great. And then he ended up with my two brothers as well. So it was really special having family incorporated into our bridal parties and being able to include them. And we had one of our siblings each as our witnesses for the ceremony. And it was just really special to be able to have everyone kind of part as of different elements of the day. But yeah, no, I think we're really pleased that we did it that way.
And how many guests did you have? Did you find that quite a difficult process to narrow down the guest list?
With our guest list, we kind of started by just doing a big draft. I feel like everybody does that, where you just write like a gazillion people down. And then as we kind of started the actual planning for the wedding itself, we were thinking like what the overall vision and feeling was that we wanted the day to be. And it became really apparent to us that it was really about having kind of our closest people with us. And even though, we love, especially coming from the events background, we both love a party. But we kind of wanted to really focus on the day, yeah, being about just having, our core people there. So in the end, we ended up getting down to, I think, about, I think it was 88 or 90, which was perfect. And we also were aware that Mudbrick is not a huge venue. So we wanted to make it so that everybody there was still going to have a really lovely time. They're not, we're all going to be crammed in, super uncomfortable. And it worked out being a really good figure for us, just to have, just our really core friends and family in the space. And yeah, again, it wasn't like we'd kind of tried to put too many people in. It was obviously hard to trim down because you want to invite everybody to come along and have a great day and celebrate with us. But I think we kind of ended up having to be quite ruthless It seems mean, but at the time. But looking back, I think we're really glad that we did what we did. You can't have everybody, and I think in hindsight, looking back at all the photos and everything, it means more to have the people that really really matter there, rather than just having hordes of people, because you can.
Yeah, so good. People understand as well, like, yeah, you can't have everyone. And I think that's a real sweet spot. I always say around that like 80, 90 mark, keeping it under 100 if you can. And yeah, then you guys still get to enjoy it and sort of chat to everyone as well. And yeah, it's quite a nice number.
Yeah, it worked out really well.
Can you tell us a bit about the big day, how it all went down, and yeah, any like favorite moments?
Yeah. So the day itself, we were really lucky. There'd been quite some bad weather leading up to our wedding day. I feel like anyone who got married over the 2023 summer can definitely relate to it being quite a tense time to be a bride or groom. And we'd had some pretty big rains coming through, but we were really lucky on the morning of the wedding. It was just stunning. So yeah, it was a really lovely cruisy morning with me and a whole bunch of my girlfriends and the bridal party and my sisters and my mum, and we kind of extended for everybody to come and get their hair and makeup done. So we had quite a large group. We had both of the mums there getting their hair and makeup done as well, and it was just a bit more special to have a few extras. And then yeah, we're getting ready. Everything was going like clockwork. Um, and then I could actually hear the bridesmaids in the corner about an hour before we were due to leave on the phone, and they were kind of like whispering, and I was like, "What's going on?" And they were all obviously trying to hide something from me. Um, but basically, in the end, I kind of coaxed them out of it, and they said to me, "They're like, how would you feel if we had to move inside?" And I was like, "Well, it's good. Like where we were getting ready, I was like, it's stunning on the island. I don't know why we'd go inside." And they said, "Oh, it's really, really windy up at Mudbrick." And I was like, how, like trying to gauge exactly how windy this was. And they're like, "Oh, the boys are just a bit worried, apparently." I think they were kind of trying to downplay it. And I think my words to them were like, "Unless it's a safety hazard, we're getting married outside," because it was just so beautiful, the weather. Um, so I guess we just pushed forward with that, and I didn't quite realize exactly how windy it was until we'd all got in the car and arrived, and we got ushered into the lodge. And as I walked around the corner with my mum, who was giving me away, um, I just could see the wind completely picking up everybody's hair and dresses. And I was like, "Oh, wow, it is actually really windy." um, but yeah, I got to the end of the aisle, obviously so excited just to see James there. Um, but yeah, as soon as I got there, I had a veil that was over my face. But as soon as they shifted me round, the wind was pulling my veil back so much that like my head was pulling backwards. So I ended up just kind of ripping it out at the end of which in hindsight, it's like so much time and effort went into that veil, and hair. And I think within about 5 seconds of me being outside, it was all everywhere. Um, but yeah, it was apart from that, it was like just all go from then. Totally forgot about the fact that it was windy or my veil was gone. It didn't really matter. I was just here to, get married and obviously enjoy it all. Um, but apart from that, it all went like absolute clockwork. We were so lucky. We had the most amazing team that had worked on our wedding. We had our coordinator there. She was amazing. Um, yeah, and it just kind of flew right by, really. We yeah, in hindsight, I don't know. It's always that thing of wishing you could have maybe like tried to remember it more or slow the day down, but I don't really think that's really possible. I think you just have to make the most of it in that moment. Um, but yeah, it was just a great day. And then yeah, after the ceremony, went down to the reception, and it was just so nice to have everyone we loved in one space together. And then yeah, in the evening, we basically everyone just danced for about yeah, from about the time that the first dance ended until 1 a.m. when everyone was getting kicked out and put onto buses, and that was it, and it was all over. It was like a whirlwind, but the best day.
Absolutely. Sounds such a good day. And yeah, there's little like hiccups. Nothing can dampen it, you know. That is Mudbrick's such a beautiful spot and epic views as well, which is often why a lot of people get married there. So I love that you persisted with the outside, and even there is a really nice indoor like courtyard space as well. If people were thinking about that, there's lots of options. That lodge is beautiful.
The yeah, with the even with the weather being like quite windy, I'm so glad that we did go with outside, and it's made for some a lot of our photos obviously are like quite dramatic and like windswept and hair's going everywhere and dresses are going everywhere, but it's like I wouldn't have changed it for anything. It was perfect.
Yeah, and just get that like movement in your shots. I love it. And did you find anything hard about the wedding planning process, or yeah, is there anything you look back on and regret or would do differently?
I don't know if there's anything we would regret so much. I think it would be more I wish we hadn't sweat the small stuff so much. In the planning and the lead up, it's so easy to overthink every single little detail, you know. Like even in the last plan that we did when we were there, I think the day or two before the wedding, I was getting stressed out about because we had olive trees brought inside into the venue because the whole kind of vibe was that Tuscan theme, and in my head I'm like trying to plan where these trees are going to go, and then it's like I think back now and I'm like I didn't even notice the trees. um, and it's like all those little things, it's so easy to get quite caught up in those fine details, but at the end of the day you're not going to notice it. On the day it's just such a all the emotions and everybody's there and you're just so full of like happiness because everyone's celebrating with you, that all those little things, like your menu, how the menus were going to be laid out or where the trees went or things like that. Yeah, in hindsight I just wish we'd maybe not, I say we, me, I wish I'd not stressed so much about those little details. Yeah, just because, yeah, I look back at photos now and there's a few things that I'm like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot that we even had that or that we'd planned to like put that there. And it's like I only see it because it's in the background of our wedding video or something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot that I like had 3 sleepless nights trying to plan about those trees or where that thing was going to go but yeah, no, it just, yeah, try and enjoy it for what it is and don't stress it.
That's great advice, and hindsight's beautiful, isn't it? Because you don't realize it really until after the fact, and you're like, why did I worry so much? That did not matter. And did you guys have a budget, if you're happy to talk about like a ballpark figure or something that you were aiming for, and if you kind of stuck to that?
Yeah, so for, yeah, it's not really something that we've ever really discussed before with people, but I guess if it helps other people kind of get an idea, um, of how things can plan out. I guess when we first started planning, you might have a number in your head that you just maybe pull out of the air a little bit, which is what I think we did. We were like, oh, I think we at the time when we first started planning, we thought that like around the 60 mark would be a realistic figure for kind of what we wanted to achieve. But by the time, uh, little things kind of pop up and then you add extra bits and pieces, and I didn't really factor in the fact that I'd fly to Sydney 3 times to get my dress. Um, so I guess yeah, it definitely ended up being more than what we thought. I think in the end, I think we probably ended up spending about just over the 80 mark, which is obviously, you know, looking back now, there's still invoices that we like see pop up every now and then, and we're like, oh my gosh, we still haven't finished paying for this wedding. Um, and no, but for us, we I don't think we change anything. But there's definitely ways in hindsight that we probably could have trimmed back. But again, it's that thing of like when you're in the thick of it, you think that every little detail is going to count. So you kind of maybe spend in areas that you probably don't really need to, that aren't going to be picked up by other people. But I mean, it's hard when you're in the thick of planning. You kind of want to have like every single little piece, tipped off. But yeah, in hindsight, I wish we maybe had done things slightly differently in terms of, just maybe not including things that really, in hindsight, probably we didn't need. Yeah.
You don't know until you know, though, and things add up quickly. So it's so understandable and, pretty like normal figure for a lot of weddings these days. So did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? Did you stay on Waiheke for a little bit? And what did planning that look like?
So we didn't go straight on honeymoon just because we were conscious that there would still be family and friends over from overseas after the wedding. So we wanted to make sure that we were available to spend time with them. We did actually end up staying on the island for an extra week or so. I think we were there for an extra 10 days. So quite a lot of family stayed on for a couple of days after the wedding. But we stayed we had a couple of days around in the kind of main part of Waiheke, spending time with everybody. And then once everyone had left, we went to the Treetops Lodge. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, it's like a tree house over on the Mano War side of Waiheke. And it was so stunning. It was just the best place for us to go and have. I think we were there for about 5 nights. It was just like in the middle of nowhere, hardly any cell phone coverage, and it was just perfect. We just got massages and went out for dinners and just kind of laid around, and it was beautiful. It was right up high in the trees, so you had all the birds and everything there, and it was just a really nice way to wind down, especially because our lead up to our wedding was so full on, with family and everybody flying in and entertaining people. And we had a big welcome dinner on the Thursday on Waiheke before the wedding. So we kind of had all these different events happening. And I think by the time we got to the end of it, we were a bit like shell shocked, really. We kind of were a bit, stunned, just trying to like catch our breath a little bit. So it was the perfect place to do that for us, was just to be in like the middle of nowhere. No one could really contact us. And we just kind of like napped and ate and like had baths, and it was great, and it was perfect.
So nice. It's exactly what you need after all the festivities, just some downtime together, the two of you. So that sounds perfect. And did you use any like helpful websites or resources during your planning process that you would recommend?
I kind of did a lot of just research myself. I didn't really necessarily use too many like specific places, but it was a lot of just like digging around, like being nosy, looking at other people's weddings, seeing which vendors they had tagged. That was probably the way that I did a lot of research to like get an idea, or if I saw something I was like, oh, I really like that, then I'd find that person on Instagram and then like go back through their photos and see who had made it or whatever it might be. That was probably the way that I did a lot of research. But there's definitely so many amazing resources out there, through websites and podcasts, different avenues that you can go through to kind of find out what other people have done. Because that's definitely, I feel like, the best way to kind of get, source different vendors or get ideas, is by people who have actually done it before. I just kind of did it that way, where I was just like digging around, finding different things. That's how I found a lot of our vendors, like our stationery vendor, supplier, who made all our invitations. They were called Deciduous Press, and they were from Tasmania. So I had a really specific idea in my head for our invites, and save the dates, that I wanted like really old-fashioned kind of stock pressed, like letter pressed card. And yeah, I found this amazing supplier in Tasmania in Australia who did that with an old proper letterpress machine. But yeah, that was purely just from also like digging around on Instagram and trying to see how people had tagged for like letterpress invitations or things like that. So yeah, definitely just kind of taking the time to do a bit of digging, and then you might find that there's like, because there are so many amazing suppliers um, who aren't necessarily like the top, one or two that everybody knows. Um, and yeah, by kind of doing a bit of digging around, I feel like we found some really cool vendors or suppliers for our wedding, that otherwise I probably wouldn't have found if I hadn't have like actually taken the time to be a bit nosy and snoop on people and find who people had used for different things.
Yeah, love that. That's such a great process. Hard to move past Instagram for that. And yeah, that's kind of what it's for. And the tagged posts are so helpful for finding people. Your stationery sounds so beautiful as well. I love that. Is there any advice that you would give to couples that are planning their wedding right now?
Do what is like what you guys want to do, because yeah, it's so easy to get pulled into doing something that you think is like traditional, or your grandma really wants that, or but really it's just about doing kind of what feels right for you. Perfect example would be, when we were planning, we had been looking around at different cakes, and we've got grandparents and parents all weighing in on, this is the kind of cake you should get, and this is the traditional flavors and this and that. And I think we got to about, it was about a year into us being engaged. We're engaged for about 2.5 years, and we kind of got to a point where we're like, we don't even like cake very much. And so yeah, after kind of just deciding, actually no, we're not gonna do a cake, we decided to do a round of limoncello at the end of all the speeches for all of our guests, including us, in lieu of a cake. And it's like, that was so much fun, and everyone talked about it, and it was like just something different. And like, we love limoncello, much prefer that over cake for us. But that was that, yeah, I guess that example of like, don't do it just because you think that you should, or yeah, you might upset your great aunt who really loves fruitcake, or thinks that you should be doing something a certain way. Yeah, definitely just do what feels best for you as a couple. And yeah, I guess you're not going to regret looking back and having done something differently in a different way, because that's what you guys wanted to do.
Yeah, amazing. That's great advice. So hard to kind of have that tunnel vision sometimes, and you get so many different opinions flying at you during that season of life and that planning process. But yeah, super important to just focus on you guys and what you like, what represents you as a couple. What is married life like now? Did you feel like you got any post-wedding blues after the wedding? And yeah, you're obviously just about to have a baby, which is so exciting. Straight into that kind of next season. But yeah, how are things now?
Yeah, everything. I think, so yeah, after we got married, it was only about a couple of weeks, and then we found out that I was pregnant. So really exciting to kind of be rolling straight through into that. But also, yeah, we didn't really get a long time to kind of be sat in that newlywed phase. Just because, yeah, as soon as we found out, obviously we were going to have a baby at the end of the year, it kind of became quite all consuming. Um, uh, but it's been great. There is definitely a feeling of, I think once you, it feels a bit weird at first, because it's, especially for us, we've been together for 10 years, and to now it's like, oh, we're married now, and nothing really has changed apart from, in terms of like the logistics of, living together and being together. But for us, we always said that getting married would, we wanted it to be kind of really specific new chapter in our life. And I think getting pregnant obviously really kick-started that as well. But yeah, it's been really lovely to yeah, take it from that angle of seeing it as a whole new chapter for us. And it is different to being, engaged. It's different to being dating. But I think we're just really enjoying it. We're quite enjoying getting to next year and me not being pregnant anymore, and maybe getting a bit more of like a honeymoon phase back again. Um, yeah, so that would be quite nice. I think we're going to try and do a belated, honeymoon next year, with baby in tow. See how that goes. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things that can feel really strange at the start. It's that novelty of like, oh, I have a husband now, or like, I'm married. But I think after like a while, you feel like there is something that is like the winds have changed a little bit. And that's what I love. I love feeling like we are at a different place, in our relationship now. And it's, is just a bit more of a bond than what we had before, even though the practicalities of it haven't necessarily changed. But yeah, no, just soak it all in. Everything's new. That would be my advice, I guess.
Oh, so exciting. Yeah, you'll probably have a baby by the time this comes out. So we're
Yeah.
sending you all the good vibes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exciting new season, but you're ready for them to arrive and not be heavily pregnant anymore.
No, especially coming into the warmer months. It's yeah, definitely like everything's quite swollen and I feel like a bit of a beach ball, but it's all right, it'll all be worth it when they've arrived. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else you wanted to add as we wrap up, just for engaged people that are listening, or yeah, anything else about your day?
I don't know if there's anything specific that I'd add. I guess it would just be um it's such a special time getting married. Uh, I was so lucky to be engaged for like 2.5 years due to COVID, but yeah, it's a part of my life that I really loved planning, and I guess my advice is just like soak it all in. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just try and enjoy all the little bits and pieces, because before you know it, you're married and the day's gone, and you wake up the next day and it's like, oh my gosh, like that's it. Like we're married now, especially when it's something that's so consuming for most people, like a year or more of planning. Yeah, I guess it's just like a really exciting thing to do again. My husband and I are already like, oh, when should we do like a renewal? We kind of want to do it all over again now, and we haven't even been married a year yet. So, yeah, I guess it's just like have fun. It's so much fun, and sharing it with people that matter the most to you. So, I guess that would be my only little takeaway for someone else to don't sweat it and just enjoy it.
Amazing. Such great advice. Just soaking up that little season of life, because it isn't that long in the bigger scheme of everything. So super important for people to remember. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm excited to share this.
No, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, no, exciting to be part of exciting time for other people. So hopefully, even one or two of the things I've said is useful for somebody else. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.